Grace wakes up in a strange bed with a robot above him that tells him he might be in an induced coma. He attempts to crawl out as the robot pulls him back, but he manages to release himself and screams, asking where he is. He finds a ladder and sees that there are also a bunch of other people lying unconscious. He gets to an upper chamber and figures out it's a spaceship and he is in space. He gets back and recognizes some things but is still confused about how he got here. He finds himself in a virtual reality room. He asks for the captain, and the system responds that the captain is dead. He tries to tell the system to go back to Earth, but she responds that the time for that is 11 years. He gathers some information and figures it out for himself to be the truth. He then gradually begins to remember his past. In the news, there are some concerns about the sun dying. He had been a school teacher and is in a classroom. One student asks him about the dots in space that are said to be eating the sun. He tells them that 2 years ago, a telescope enthusiast named Irina Petrova discovered a streak of infrared light from the sun to Venus, which is now known as the Petrova line carrying the dots. Grace relieves them, saying it's only eating the sun in very tiny bits. They are still concerned since the Earth might slowly die within 15 to 20 years. He tells them not to worry, for the scientists will figure something out. Back at the spaceship, Grace trims his beard and tries to clean up the place. He finds an album and remembers some of the other astronauts. He tries to figure out more of himself and passes the days. Back at the school office, a woman comes in. She introduces herself as Eva and says she is from the Petrova line research. She brings out a thesis written by Grace long ago about the inessentiality of water for probable alien forms. He soon gets up and attempts to leave because he was fired for that thesis. She follows him and says they need to do research on the space dots called astrophages. Her security member Carl also comes out to escort him, and he eventually reaches the research center. He is put in a suit as a bunch of other people are outside. He checks out the astrophage and begins to test. He spends a lot of time trying to delve in, but he can't look into them. Everyone is exhausted. However, the attempts continue, and he finds out it's a cell. Everyone is excited, but the cell soon dies. He then tries to figure out what they're made of, and it turns out they're made of oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon. Outside, Grace sits a bit disappointed as his theory is pretty wrong. Eva comes up and confirms that the astrophages consume the sun's energy. She asks what its connection to Venus is, and Grace doesn't know. She leaves, saying they have over 300 more biologists to answer that. Grace follows her and says he would like to help further. She leaves him 3 astrophages for research. Grace continues his work as Carl keeps an eye on him. He says they need to get some things and they go out to buy them. They get back and figure they need an environment of carbon and heat where the astrophage can reproduce. They get on that and eventually he creates a box in a darkened room, leading to the reproduction of an astrophage. They immediately take the news to Eva, who is on a Navy ship. She takes him to a room full of researchers where Grace hesitates. They clap for him and he begins to explain how he has done it. One of them asks how long it would take to make 2 million kilograms of astrophage. He doesn't understand why they need them. Eva then gets up, saying she has assigned him as the head of Project Hail Mary, and Grace continues to be confused. Apparently, the sun is not the only star that is dying, but all the neighboring stars as well, except one called Tau Ceti 11.9 light-years away. They have decided to build a ship to go there and find out why. They had the problem of powering the ship, but the reproduction of 2 million kilograms of astrophages would fix it. They won't have enough fuel to get back. The astronauts will return the findings to Earth on the probe, and they will die in space. This is their only hope, contrary to watching the planet die. On the ship, Grace checks out the deceased astronauts and gives them memorials, saying he will do his best to complete the mission. He gradually lets go of the bodies. He later chills in the virtual reality when suddenly a countdown begins, and the gravity is gone. An ejector comes out of the ship, and he is able to get hold of the monitor capturing the outside through a camera. Tau Ceti is nearby. It also has a Petrova line, but it's not dimming. He then notices that the Petrova line is stopped by some kind of object. The system suddenly says, "Blip A detected." Grace sees outside that there's a huge, strange, ship-like object. He is able to control the ship and get out of its way. However, the alien ship comes above him as well. He keeps getting out of its way, and the ship follows. Once he stops, it throws something at Grace's ship. He settles down fearing an explosion, but it knocks and turns back. Then another is thrown, moving rather slower. Grace tells the system to catch it, and she recommends that he go on a spacewalk. He wears the suit somehow and gets out of the ship. He struggles to control himself and stumbles constantly as the object continues to move towards the ship. He somehow finds a balance and starts running towards it, finally grabbing it. He takes it in, and inside he finds something strange, like a bunch of antennas. He understands it's from an alien form but can't make heads or tails of it. He tries to do some research, attempting to give it an energy source, and eventually another similar object is thrown at his ship. There is something different inside this time. Then he sees a bunch of long poles from the alien ship connecting with his. The ships connect with a mysterious glass barrier. He opens the bay door and sees that a tunnel has formed all around. He walks into it and stumbles across a block. He taps on it, and soon something scares him terribly. He recollects himself and sees a rock arm tapping on glass. It shows him a human-shaped replica along with a model of his ship. It tries to tell him to go back to his ship, and Grace returns. The tunnel disconnects, and the ship begins to move, but only to reconnect to a different bay door. Grace gathers some instruments and depressurizes the ship. He walks out and finds the glass barrier. This time, the alien shows up in its full form. It crawls like a spider and touches the glass door, scaring Grace. He scares him back but soon realizes the thing is only imitating him. Whatever he does, the alien does it as well, including copying his laugh. Grace then checks out his body to look for a face but doesn't find any. It attempts to communicate with Grace by pointing at the thing thrown at its ship earlier. He brings it to it, and the alien tries to tell him something. After several attempts, Grace realizes it is asking him to take his helmet off. Grace won't do it and is about to return, but realizes the thing in his hand is indicating an oxygen model. The rock nods. He finds the courage to remove the helmet and realizes he can breathe perfectly. Grace then returns to the ship and inspects the other object previously thrown at him. He realizes it's the Petrova line. He returns to the rock and says they are here for the same reason. He tries to communicate with it by bringing in different objects to teach him numbers, but it doesn't understand much and only sees him at a surface level. He realizes the problem, tells him his name and names him Rocky. He goes back and returns, putting clothing over the numbers so that they can be seen. He shows some signs and Grace teaches him thumbs up, but he copies it as thumbs down. Rocky then brings in an object it keeps on turning, and Grace realizes it's their clock. Grace then brings in a computer with a microphone and uses an alien communication software to understand him. He shows him the Astrophage and Rocky communicates, calling it bad. He further says he is alone, for there were 23 of them and all of them died. He asks about his ship and the story is the same. Rocky says they will save the stars together. They do a fist bump on this. Together they try to make a plan, and Grace tells him a bit about himself, as Rocky asks what he is doing there to stop reading the texts all the time. Grace assigns him a voiceover. Together they pass through a bunch of them and choose one. He answers that he doesn't remember what he is doing in space. Grace then decides to go to sleep, but Rocky tells him he must see him because he is afraid he will die, as his crew died while he wasn't awake. Grace then lies under him, feeling a bit absurd, but he goes to sleep. Back in time, Grace was being introduced to the 3 astronauts assigned for the mission. They talk about how they have the option to end themselves once the mission is over, and how they would prefer doing it. They are brought to show a demonstration of how the astrophage works to fuel the engine in the spaceship. Grace remembers some fraction of those memories. The ship detects movement, and he sees that Rocky has come out to the ship. He runs through the whole ship as Grace tries to stop him. He continues complaining about the mess. Grace calms him down and tries to teach him about boundaries, but he soon runs in search of his bedroom. Grace later records his journal about his new unwanted roommate, how he keeps on bothering him and his absurd way of eating. He whispers in the journal but says Rocky can hear everything and see through walls. He whispers in a very low tone, but Rocky hears it all. Together they build upon a plan. They're going to orbit through the planet where Astrophage breeds, collect a sample, and figure out why it's not eating Tau Ceti. Grace arranges the ship for the journey, and the system responds that it will take 11 days. They embark on their journey. In the meantime, Grace introduces Rocky to Earth through the virtual reality room, from nature to entertainment. He then asks Rocky what he misses most about home. He replies to his mate. Grace asks what their name is, and he responds with a very long sound wave. Grace says it's beautiful. Rocky asks if he has any mates. He responds that he used to be the one who left, saying his head is not in the real world, and she was right, Grace states. Grace then asks him how long he has been together with his partner, and Rocky responds 186.3 years. In the present, Grace and Rocky have reached the planet. Since they are the first to discover it, Grace says they can name it. Rocky says it should be named Medium Rough Texture Circle Planet. Grace responds that it's better to be a bit personal name and imagines a name for Rocky's partner and says it should be Adrian. Rocky approves of it. Grace returns with a sample and compares it with the Earth astrophage. He says it's not leaving the planet for some reason. He inspects it further and finds a sign of life. It's not just astrophage but living bacteria. They are shocked by this revelation, which concludes that there is life on Adrian. Grace remembers a time at the Navy port along with the scientists and the astronauts. He goes out to meet with Eva and chats with her a bit, saying how happy people are being despite knowing they're going to die. He asks if she thinks they would pull this off, and she only says it's God willing. Grace returns to the party, and everyone continues having fun when Eva enters, takes the microphone, and begins singing Sign of the Times, grabbing everyone's attention. Rocky soon begins to freak out, saying those living organisms on Adrian are making the astrophage die like a predator. If they can bring that predator home, they can save their stars as well. They need the microbacterial predator from the clouds of Adrian, but the ship isn't capable of reaching the planet. Rocky says he can create infinite chains and they can reach that, but they both know that Grace is not a professional pilot and Rocky trains him for it. In between, he reveals his plan of sending it back on a probe. Rocky is confused as to why he wouldn't be returning home with it. Grace says they don't have enough fuel to return, and he has a couple of years of food, and eventually he will die. Rocky says no, he must go home. Grace says he has made peace with it, but Rocky doesn't like it. He says he can give him 2 million kilograms of astrophage, but he would go back home 6 years slower. He could not save his crew, and he can't let the same happen again. Grace sobs up, telling the truth that he did not make peace. He thanks him for it, hugging him, but he gets scared. However, he learns to hug back. Back into time, Grace and Eva are together chatting about to launch the rocket. However, soon a catastrophe occurs in space. The rocket slowly approaches the surface of the planet. He drives the satellite, and there's a slight turbulence. When they're in position, they drop the collector with the chain. The collector collects the bacteria, and Grace goes out to take it back when he notices the satellite is slightly on fire. They pull the collector back, and Grace grasps a hold of it. The ship soon shows an altitude warning. Grace then sees that the ship has been lowered from the cloud level. Soon an object knocks Grace down, and the collector hangs low. A warning shows about excessive exterior temperature. Grace decides to take it, but Rocky says they can try again. It's not worth risking life. Grace doesn't believe there will be another time and goes for it. He grabs it and hangs by the chain. He cuts it off, swings by his hand, and throws in the collector. He gets back in and takes the pilot's seat. He turns on the engine, and the satellite moves. The hull pressure warning continues. They somehow reach out of the atmosphere, but the fuel tank has a hole in it. He manages to eject the fuel tank but knocks his head, making him unconscious. Rocky breaks out from a shell and saves him. He pulls him out and puts an oxygen mask over him. However, he himself begins to waste away. Back in the past, the explosion killed one of the astronauts. They now have to have an immediate replacement, and Grace doesn't understand who, but everyone is looking at him. He says he is not an astronaut, but Eva replies that she doesn't need an astronaut, rather someone expert in astrophage who is mission ready. He explains he cannot do this at all, but everyone says he can. He is afraid she is plainly asking him to give up his life, and she says yes, adding she has 3 hours to make a decision. Grace wakes up in the spaceship but doesn't find Rocky anywhere. He follows the trails of carbon and finds him slowly dying. Later, Grace records a journal saying he doesn't know what to do anymore. His work is done. Rocky left a message for him. Grace extracts the bacteria and compiles a successful test of how it kills the astrophage. He continues the journal, complaining to Rocky that he gave up before reaching his planet and giving up on their plan. He falls asleep and wakes up to Rocky tapping beside him. He has come back into his shell. Grace wakes up and, excited, hugs him immediately. He brings him into the room where he collected all the bacteria. They decide to celebrate it, enjoying themselves in a VR room. He gifts Rocky a sponge Earth toy. He now wants to check out his ship. They go on as Grace wears the glass suits. He enters and it's all around just transparent rays that he cannot make heads or tails of. Back in the past, Grace reached Eva's office and told her that he can't do it. He doesn't have the bravery to do it. Eva tries to make him understand the consequences, but he has made up his mind and is about to leave. However, she is not going to let him go. A doctor comes in. She says he will be remembered as a hero. Grace tries to make a run, but he is surrounded. He still runs outside but is soon grabbed and made unconscious. Grace now remembers everything on the spaceship. He is about to return home and says goodbye to Rocky. Rocky responds with a sign of their farewell. He returns and cuts off the connector. The spaceship disconnects and moves away as they show their thumbs up to one another. The system tells it will take 4 years to reach Earth. He dreams of all the past moments and wakes up to a warning saying contempt detected. He goes to check it and sees there is a leak as the bacteria have eaten away the xenonite which is used to build the ship itself. He realizes it will also cause the death of Rocky. It will be one long, slow, and painful death. He makes the calculation and sees he has 2 options. One, he can go home or he can save Rocky. He makes a decision. He packs up all his findings, and along with his journals, sends them away. He then journeys towards Rocky's ship, and once he finds it, he reaches for it. There's a huge glass barrier now, and he desperately bangs on it. Eventually, Rocky shows up, and they hug. Back on Earth, their findings have reached, and Eva checks out his journals and has also received a small gift. Their mission has taken place. Later, Grace wakes up to an alarm. He has set a habitat on the planet of Rockies. Rocky knocks on the door, and they go out together to the beach. Rocky says that their scientists have arranged his ship to journey back home. He says he would think about going back here. He has become a teacher to teach all the Rockies. So that was the recap of the 2026 movie project Hail Mary. For more recaps like this, stay subscribed to the channel, and if you have liked this video you may also like the next one. Stay tuned.